Tuesday, January 24th, 2023, and pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, on June 16th, 2021, former Governor Charles Baker signed into law an act extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency. This act includes an extension until March 31st of 2023 of the remote meeting provisions of his March 12th, 2020 executive order. This meeting will be conducted via remote participation from the board, and I'm going to grant Westwood Media Center and anyone else who wishes to record the meeting. So granting to Westwood Media Center. Is there anyone else that looks to record this meeting? Seeing none, I'm going to jump into the chair's update. We have the John J. Cronin Public Service Award is open for 2023 nominations. This award was named for the late John J. Cronin, and he was the town treasurer for many years, who gave selflessly of his time for the betterment of the community, both as an elected official and in numerous volunteer activities within and outside the community. You can pick up nominating forms online at the town's website or in the select board's office. You can request them via email at selectboard@townhall.westwood.ma.us. You should consider the following criteria when submitting a nomination: leadership, years of dedication, diversity of service, volunteerism, and dedication to the Westwood community. Nominations should be submitted to the select board's office at Town Hall, and we will have the nominations for the annual town meeting in the spring. And nominations are due by March 3rd, 2023. Next in the chair's update is the Community Choice Electric Program. You may remember from a prior meeting where Tom Philman came in and talked about this. The town of Westwood is launching the Westwood Community Choice Electric. It's an electric aggregation program in March of 2023. The program is designed to provide new competitively priced electric supply options and more renewable energy for residents and businesses in Westwood. The program was approved by town meeting in May of 2019. Members of the Westwood Environmental Action Committee and representatives of Good Energy, the town's energy consultant, will be hosting an in-person community forum for residents to learn more about the program. Those forums will be held in person January 26th at 2 p.m. in the Senior Center, and February 2nd at 7 p.m. And that will be held at the main library community room. There will be other outreach brochures that are created by Good Energy are available at the Westwood Main Library and the Islington Branch Library and the Senior Center. And the Westwood Environmental Action Committee created some flyers that are displayed in select municipal buildings and businesses. And there is a CCE video featuring Q&A segment in production with Westwood Media Center, and that will be shared on the town's website once it's complete. For more information, you can go to westwoodcce.com, and that is a dedicated website to the program. Okay, scheduled action. We have a few things. Most are budget related tonight. We have a request for a transfer from the Select Board Reserve Fund to supplement the fiscal year 23 municipal operating budget. I think Stephanie is here to take us through that, or Chris. So I will turn it to the two of you so that you can make this request.
Sure, thank you. So this is a request for a transfer from the Select Board Reserve Fund to the FY23 municipal operating budget. It is a necessary funding adjustment in the total amount of $85,000 to supplement the operating budget in order to cover two changes made in the current fiscal year. $60,000 is due to restructuring of the Human Resources Department, and $25,000 is due to the restructuring of the Human Services Division, which included a new director role. So there was a transfer already done this year out of the Select Board Reserve for $57,000. The original budget of the reserve fund was $295,000. So currently there is a balance of $238,000. And if this transfer is approved, there would be a balance of $153,000. So if you have any questions on any of the items.
I will turn it to my colleagues. Do either of you have questions?
I do not. I had a chance to speak with Chris earlier on this, so I'm okay.
Very good. Mary Ann, any questions?
I did as well. I'm okay with this.
Okay, then I would entertain a motion.
So I move the select board to approve the transfer of $85,000 from the select board reserve account for FY23 municipal operating budget to fund a human resources supplement and a human services supplement.
I second that.
Okay, roll call vote. Ms. LeBlanc Cummings,
Aye.
Mr. Walsh,
Aye.
and I vote aye as well. Okay, the next update is Stephanie for the update to the fiscal year 24 budget process. So I will turn it over to you, Stephanie.
Great. I'm just going to share my screen. And hoping everyone can see that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right. So at the last meeting, we reviewed with the board the details of the FY24 proposed capital articles. So tonight I will be focusing on the operating side of the proposed budget, including specifically the municipal budget. So in order to get to the proposed budget that will be presented tonight, it was really a collaborative effort. In particular, the Budget Steering Committee has worked hard over the past month or so. And personally, I've been very impressed with the level of participation from the town, the school, FinCom members, school committee members, and the board members. It's been a great process to be part of, really. So all of that, the committee has met multiple times to collaborate on getting the numbers down to what I will be presenting tonight, while still meeting the needs of the different departments. We are definitely in a challenging year for budgeting. There are a number of increases in the current fiscal year that will impact FY24 and need to be incorporated into the FY24 budget. So tonight I will be going through the proposed municipal budget and then looking at the overall proposed budget. And this budget is currently balanced. I will present a high-level summary also of the proposed expenditures and revenue sources just to show that. And then I will just end with next steps. So that's just a summary of what I'll be going over tonight. All right, the municipal budget provides a diverse range of services throughout the town. The bulk of this budget is made up of police, fire, DPW, so the core services really of public safety and maintenance. There are also departments that provide programs and services for all ages, the COA, the library, recreation. There are state required services such as zoning, health, licensing, veterans, and then the administrative side, so the administrative departments, billing, collecting, town administrative services. As you can see, just 66% of that, though, is DPW and public safety. And the municipal budget is really salary driven. The portion shown here in blue, as you can see, 80% of the budget is for staffing. And that is comprised really of police, fire, and DPW workers, which provide direct services to the residents. Looking specifically at the numbers, here's a breakdown of the proposed funding for FY24 and how that funding is allocated among the different service areas. So just to know, public works, public safety have an increase in FY24 of $538,000, which is 58% of the total overall increase. And I'll just go into more detail on that. So the proposed FY24 budget for the municipal budget is $23.6 million, which is a $955,000 increase over the current budget year. The majority of that increase, as I said, is driven by salaries. And what is included in that? So it's the contractual obligations for our staff, which is the largest piece, as you can see, $624,000. There was also, as I mentioned, the restructuring of the Human Services Division in the current year, which now has a director position, so a division head, and then increased admin support. So we're now building that into the FY24 budget. And similarly with Human Resources, there was a restructuring of the department in FY23 that we'll now carry over and build into the FY24 budget. And then also in recreation, we are including a program manager position that is being budgeted for partial year just due to hiring planned for the fall. So those are just the main pieces that make up the salary portion of this increase. On the expense line side, these are just a few of the items. Building inspections, this is a requirement. It's the state is now implementing for weights and measures. So that's a required $10,000 increase for 24. Training, it's a requirement for OSHA. So now we have to do more training through OSHA with our DPW department, which is another $10,000 increase. Building maintenance, that is due to the new building that was purchased in the current year, the American Legion building. We need now a budget specifically for that to maintain that building. Increased utility cost, and that is town-wide. And then also an emergency management project, which was started in the current year for our fire department and will now carry forward into FY24. So this chart just shows the growth of the municipal budget over a multi-year period. The town has always worked to maintain sustainable and moderate growth. This year is slightly higher, as you can see. It's a higher proposed increase of 4.2%. To put that in perspective of previous years, it's been around 3.5%, which is the number that is sustainable. As I've talked about before, the limitations of Prop 2.5, and it really limits our tax revenue, which is the majority of what funds our budget. So while this is a slightly higher number, the town strives to develop budgets that are affordable and sustainable. This year is more of a challenge, but we've gone through the regular process of streamlining department requests, cutting back wherever possible. We've worked hard to close a lot of one-time budget challenges. And while this is not within the range that we strive for each year, this is where we currently need to be. And we plan in future years to bring that increase back in line with the normal range. All right, so that was the bulk of the municipal budget. And I'm now going to move into the overall proposed budget. So that includes, as we were just talking about, continued stable operating budget growth. So currently the school budget increase is proposed at a 4.5% increase. Municipal is at 4.2%. And our fixed costs, which I'll talk about later in the presentation, is currently at a 5.1%. Our capital budget for the municipal side is the 1.3 million, which is a baseline and is funded with free cash. And then the school side of that base capital, which is 1 million, is also funded with free cash. And there's been no increase from FY23 to the FY24 proposed request. The supplemental capital budget article, which is funded with meals and hotels tax, as well as other funding sources. So that includes additional capital school and town projects of 1.1 million. As I said, this is funded with meals and hotel tax. The current balance in that account is 1.7 million. And then there is the sewer capital improvements, 1.1 million, and that is funded specifically with sewer retained earnings. And then other capital improvements for 445,000, which is funded specifically with ambulance receipts. And then we were able to keep within our financial policies and guidelines, we're able to budget still our liabilities and reserves. So we are continuing with the $125,000 transfer from free cash to our stabilization fund, as well as the $1.5 million contribution to OPEB. So these just keep us on target with our financial policies, as I said, and our required funding. Borrowing, these are just items I want to point out. I know I talked about this at the last meeting in more detail, just projects that would require borrowing. So the fire department replacement of a ladder 1, our cemetery expansion construction, which the design portion of that project was funded in the current fiscal year. And then the sewer I&I program, which would be through an NWRA loan, which would be $500,000. And as I stated, I just want to point out, so the overall proposed budget is currently balanced, and I'll get more into that now. So on the expenditure budget side, here's just a summary of the FY24 proposed budget on the expenditure side. So I'll just point out the columns specifically for our FY24 projected. It starts off with our number for the overall operating, which includes debt service, sewer, benefits, operating budget on the municipal side and school side. And then it gets into, as I just went over, the base capital and other appropriations, which total our total expenditure summary. On the revenue side, here's just a list of sort of balancing that on the revenue side for what makes up. And as I stated before, just getting back into Prop 2.5, a large portion of that revenue source is taxes. So this just shows the history of the stabilization fund. And as I said, we're still in line with our financial policies this year. So included in the budget is that $125,000 appropriation to that fund. And then on the OPEB side, we are still in target with our funding plan. We increased the appropriation for that this year by $25,000 over the FY23 number. So that's $1.5 million for the FY24 budget. I will now just go into more detail on the proposed operating budget. So within that overall, as I stated, is the operating piece, and I just want to go over that a bit. So the proposed operating budget is $111.6 million, which is a 6.1% increase over FY23. I do just want to note that this increase is really being driven by the debt issuance for the Hanley Deerfield project, with the first payment being made in the next fiscal year in FY24. So the operating budget excluding this debt is $103.9 million, or a 4.3% increase. That is slightly higher than the current FY23 increase over 24, which is 3.9. So I'll just point that out. It is a slightly higher increase. And just the different components that make that up: school, municipal, fixed cost, and debt service. So those are the large pieces that make up that increase. And this is just a breakdown of those categories and the different percentages you can see over here. So 4.5 for school, 4.2 for municipal. Some of these items are still estimates, including health insurance, which I talked about as the fixed cost piece, Blue Hills assessment, and the MWRA assessment, which I'll continue to update the board on as those numbers become more finalized. And as I said, the total debt service increase of 32.5% is significantly higher due to the issuance of the Hanley Deerfield project debt. So fixed costs, I went through this slide in previous presentations. I just wanted to quickly update that it is currently at an estimated increase of approximately 5.1%, which is an overall $1 million increase. We did, which was good news, get the updated pension assessment number, which comes in now at a 1.7% increase over FY23, which was great news. We're still waiting to hear for health insurance costs. We're estimating 8% right now. That's the guidance we received from the GIC, but we'll continue to update when we get any additional information on that. Trash is currently estimated at 4.7% increase. Other fixed costs, OPEB, as I stated, we're still on track with that. And then just other shared costs, approximately $80,000 for energy and sustainability and communications. So just the next steps in the budget cycle, January and February meetings, we will continue to update any information we have on our FY24 revenue projections, which includes local revenue sources, and the big one, which is the FY24 state aid budget. So any information we get on that, hopefully it's an increase, but we will continue updating you on that. Continue to review the capital budget articles of the select board, ongoing capital, as well as the timing of larger projects being considered. And as I stated, the governor's budget will be delayed, hopefully the end of January. But we will continue to update on any information we get from that. And then the proposed budget documents we plan to have out February 1st, which include the municipal, overall, and initial capital articles. And then the next meeting we'll present is to the FinCom on February 14th, the proposed FY24 budget. And if you have any questions on any of that, I'm happy to answer.
Well, Stephanie, thank you for that, first of all. Would you do me a favor and jump back to page, I believe it was 10 of your presentation?
Sure.
Just to highlight the work that you alluded to that has been done over the past month in the collaboration between you and Lemma and Chris and Emily. When we were talking last month, when you heard what Emily presented to the school committee, I believe she started at 5.65%, with a big portion of that being driven by special education needs. And then on the municipal side, you've been able to shave some down from where I believe you started out. And then the fixed costs, and the fixed cost is really as big a slice of the pie as the municipal slice of the pie. That I think you started at 10%. And we are, or 8% in total, and now it's down to 5.1. And I think, you guys have done a magnificent job. And yes, there are still things to come in terms of opportunity. Hopefully we get more in state aid. Hopefully the GIC insurance number is not the 8%, maybe it's 7, maybe it's 6. All of those things will be very, very helpful. So I want to commend you and Chris and Emily and Lemma for the work that has been done to get us to this point. I will first turn to Michael and Marianne to see if either of you have questions. I certainly have some, but I will reserve till the end.
I have some questions. Thank you, Rob. And just on that last point, just to clarify that our superintendent, Emily Parks, is recommending an increase of 4.5%, correct?
Yes, that is correct. She presented to the school committee and that is their recommended increase.
Right, thank you. Quick question about increased expenses on the municipal side. There was an item for $35,000 for the American Legion, and I just wanted to clarify, are we expecting that to be an ongoing increased expense year to year? And could somebody speak to that?
Sure. So the majority of our buildings have maintenance budgets that are drafted through our DPW department. And since this was a new building that we took on board, we just needed to set up its own cost center and dedicate some funding towards just maintaining that. So in out years, it would just be the normal same increases all across the board of all of our maintenance budgets for all of our buildings. But we needed to start with a lump sum to maintain it in FY24 because it has never had a budget before.
Got it. Thank you.
So that increase will not be that large moving forward in out years.
Great. Thank you. And with respect to the FinCom Reserve Fund, I know there's been discussion at FinCom over the last couple of years about restructuring the way that fund is funded. And I was hoping you could speak to that in terms of the plans for FY24, what you're proposing.
Sure. So I just brought this slide up. I hope this helps. I believe in previous years, so the total budget for the FinCom reserve is $405,000. We are proposing the same amount. It has been funded in previous years through tax revenue, and this year we are proposing it as being funded through free cash. So it is included in this 2.9 million proposed for free cash funding. Does that answer your question?
It does, yes. Thank you very much. I will pass the baton at this point.
Yeah, I don't have any questions right now. I'm going to review it a little bit more depth, and I'm going to wait to see what the capital expenditures are. So I'll hold off till our next meeting.
Okay. Stephanie, as we are moving forward, I know Chris had alluded to, collective bargaining, things that are still outstanding. I know that we are making strides towards some of those meetings and getting some of those things finalized. As you look at the budget in total, where we are today, any areas of risk that you're concerned about?
Can you?
Obviously, state aid. We're banking on state aid, right? So,
right.
Yep.
Right.
Mr. Chair, could I just jump in and maybe tee this one off a little bit and then help Stephanie out a little bit on this one?
Absolutely.
I think one of the areas that we've continued to talk about is our fuel and cost for fuel, not just on the town side, but also on the school side. So Stephanie has taken a very reasonable and conservative approach to increase fuel requests that we receive from different departments. And that's, police, fire, DPW, any town vehicle, any fuel related vehicle that we have on the town or the school side. And I think one of the areas that we have that we're seeing, especially with electric, and I know many residents have received some newer electric or higher electric bills recently. That's an area of concern that I think we have is when it comes to our energy consumption or our cost for energy and also fuel. So those are areas that we're watching very closely. It's very difficult to predict what the cost per gallon is going to be for fuel as we go forward, but Stephanie has put in a sustainable increase. But I think that's one area that Stephanie and I have been talking about as an area of concern.
Highlighting really just the importance of that project with the canopies at the high school to be able to reduce our reliability on the electrical sources, and get to more sustainable and more predictable increases in that realm. Okay. So Michael, you've got no other questions. Mary Ann, you have no other questions. Stephanie, I think again, thank you for this. You've done a marvelous job in a very short period of time getting up to speed. So thank you.
Thank you for that. And I appreciate it. I do
one
want
more
to
thing
say,
here.
I was talking about the collaborative effort, and I just want to thank everyone who's been involved in this budget process so far to getting where we are right now. And I appreciate all the support.
Chris, I believe you had something you wanted to say.
Yeah, I was just going to really echo that. I think, first of all, Stephanie, thank you. I think in a very short period of time, you grasp a hold of our budget process, our needs, the services that the town has grown to expect, and being able to put together a proposed balanced budget that will work. So thank you very much for that. And it doesn't go without a tremendous amount of work from members of the finance department and Stephanie's team. And so it's really a great team effort that I've seen in a very short time frame. And I just want to thank all of them for all the work that they've done.
Thank you. I would agree with you based on my limited view in the budget steering process. So, okay, that takes us through. It takes us to the annual town meeting article discussion. We reviewed the articles last time, and we have in the packet the articles that were being presented for annual town meeting. And then we have a schedule of upcoming meetings. There's a January 31st meeting and a February 1st meeting with FinCom, if needed, a February 14th meeting. And so I believe, is there any action that we need to take, amending, accepting, or removing of any articles?
Mr. Chair, at this time, I would, there aren't, to answer your question, there's no action that's needed at this time. But certainly if you're meeting on the 31st, if there's any questions after you've had an opportunity to digest the information that you have, we're certainly happy to answer those questions and make any adjustments needed. But I do think between the 31st and the 14th, we would certainly be recommending that the board does vote on the articles within the warrant.
Very good.
And there are still some couple of moving pieces that we're still working on as well.
Excellent. I did get a chance to watch the last FinCom meeting. Mary Ann, I'd like to thank you and Chris for Mary Ann for pinch hitting for me as I had a conflict that night. So I appreciate it.
It's great to be back at FinCom.
So that takes us through any other comments with respect to the warrant article list. I think we can defer that till the next meeting unless either of you have anything that you'd like to say about the list. All set. Very good. Okay, then that takes us to the approval of the meeting minutes from January 9th. Did anybody have any comments and or changes to those meeting minutes?
I do not.
I would entertain a motion then. Michael, you're on mute.
Sorry, just trying to make sure I don't have any background noise. So I would move approval of the select board meeting minutes from our January 9th, 2023 minutes as written.
I second that.
Okay, roll call vote, Ms. LeBlanc Cummings,
Aye.
Mr. Walsh,
Aye.
and I vote aye as well. And that really concludes the business that we had before us for this evening. No, I don't see any questions, comments from public or press. So with that, I would, before we adjourn, just like to let people know our next meeting will be January 31st at 5 p.m. right here via Zoom. So that's next Tuesday, January 31st at 5 p.m. And with that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
And seconded.
And roll call vote, Ms. LeBlanc Cummings,
Aye.
Mr. Walsh,
Aye.
and I vote aye as well. Thank you, everybody, and we'll see you next Tuesday.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Good night.
Good night.
Thanks.